I joined Twitter nearly 10 years ago now, which was fairly early on in terms of Twitter's popular growth. I was there back when it was akin to shouting into the void. I was there when it was a place to get into beefs with your friends, other than just Facebook. I was there when it morphed into a vacuous self-promotion platform. And I've been there recently, as it became infested with accounts like Death to Jews 1488, while people I know get suspended for telling a transphobe to fuck off. I'm not really going to dive into an experiential comparison, as I was 12 when I joined Twitter. I don't really have comparable notes from back then, I just have memories and feelings spanning a near decade, and I don't think that's enough to talk about the history, design, and community of Twitter. I'm not qualified. I am qualified, though, because everyone is, to say this. Twitter has a moderation problem. So, yesterday I made an account on Mastodon. You could call Mastodon a Twitter clone, and you wouldn't be wrong. Not by a long way, actually. It's a microblogging social network with followers and media attachment functionality, and hashtags and @ing too. What I'd like to talk about, though, are the features that Mastodon has that Twitter doesn't. I think there are features on Mastodon that are pretty fucking neat, and as a designer, I'm even a bit jealous of them. This isn't an ad for Mastodon though, guys. It's still a very small platform. It might disappear tomorrow. I'm not making a Mastodon ad. As a designer, I personally feel that design is the practice of being conscious of what questions you are asking, what decisions you're making, and why. You can design intuitively, but to learn design, to refine your practice, to apply design theory, you need to take steps back and be conscious of what you're doing. Donald Norman, author of The Design of Everyday Things, said that a good door is a door that you don't notice you've walked through. Norman puts all the burden on the designers of systems, of products, of stuff. If you have a bad experience with a product, the designer didn't put in enough thought into how you would experience it. A good door should be unnoticed because the designer should have put more thought into making it function without impeding the user, so the user has to put less thought into using it. If you're finding this a bit opaque, if you feel like doors are just things that should be there and don't need that much thought put into them, I'd say go read about the new Apple headquarters in California. They wanted the building to have entirely both glass walls and doors, to be on brand with Apple's minimalist design ethos. The problem is, nobody could tell where the doors were and people kept walking into walls and hurting themselves. Now, if you're still on Donald Norman's side here that the designer needed to put in more effort, in case you're watching this thinking these Apple employees are dumbasses for not just remembering where the doors were, you should also know that the employees tried putting up post-it notes on the doors so they'd know where to walk through, but Apple had them taken down. This is a fantastically clear example of the wrong motivations informing design decisions, even to the point where they were defending that bad decision by trying to remove the solution that users implemented. It's a beautifully transparent example. It's so perfectly clear you could walk right into it and break your fucking nose. Now, onto Mastodon's features. Instead of tweeting on Mastodon, you toot. I think it sounds dumb too. Instead of retweeting someone else's toot though, you boost them. This subtle change is exactly the kind of thing I'm talking about when I say design is about knowing which decisions you're making and why. Retoot might have been the most obvious thing to call that function, and without thinking about it, most of us probably would have, but the designer here was conscious of a problem they wanted to solve, and they made a different decision. If someone says something you don't like on Twitter, you will want to retweet them so you can talk to all your followers about how much you hate them. I can't, however, imagine seeing a toot by, say, a neo-Nazi and choosing to boost it. I wouldn't want to boost their voice. Mastodon also includes the ability to warn people about sensitive content with a custom warning, and then uses a click to reveal function to show the content. This obviously is useful in case you want to hide graphic imagery or spoilers or something, but also is a huge step up over Twitter, which hides content somewhat arbitrarily based on flagging and moderation. Twitter's model can be harmful to people who might want to post graphic content. Okay, I'm talking about nudes, guys. I'm talking about nudes. I need to get around the euphemisms in order to discuss this. If you're a sex worker advertising on social media, you need to be able to decide what to hide or show. It needs to not be obscured against your will by a moderator. This brings us neatly full circle to Twitter's moderation problem. It's almost like I planned it, it's almost like I'm reading from some sort of script. When I went to join Mastodon, out of curiosity mostly, I saw that the site copy described it as being decentralized. I thought this was an odd thing to say because it doesn't seem like there's anything particularly centralized about Twitter, or social networks in general really. Every user is simply a node. You can have your account verified if it's important for people to know that you're the real you, but that's true on Mastodon too. And it doesn't inherently create more power. What they meant by decentralized though was referring to the moderation system. On Mastodon, people can run their own servers, and each server has its own moderators who are not necessarily anything to do with Mastodon as an organization. Mastodon is, after all, an open source platform. This gives people the opportunity to create communities that are moderated relative to the standards of their own community, while still being accountable to the overall community of Mastodon. This is... well, I can't say social engineering because that means something else entirely, but this is design of a system with a consciousness of how people socialize. The designer is aware of what decisions they're making and why. This is designing sociology. There's a cautionary tale in design to be looked at here, and that's the story of Pruitt-Igoe. For those unaware, there was a time in the history of architecture when architects decided collectively, or lots of architects decided independently, that they could solve societal problems with design alone. In this spirit, architect Minoru Yamasaki designed a set of blocks in St. Louis which was supposedly going to dramatically improve the lives of the people who were, before the towers were built, living in slums. The short story is that without any kind of intervention, the towers became notorious for crime, poverty, and racial segregation, and the buildings were dynamited only 2 decades after being built. The image of these buildings being demolished has become iconic, representing the demise of this attitude, that design alone can solve societal issues, human issues. Where Mastodon might, and that's a big might, do better, is that the design of this system is a design of how human intervention can be used. It has the human element baked in. I'm not hitching my wagon to Mastodon here. I just wanted to write this short piece to briefly look at some of these ideas and explain why I'm hopeful that Mastodon might bring about some change in how we use social networks. Of course, any number of things could go wrong, the most likely being that people just won't move over don't move over from Twitter. Whatever happens though, I'd like to explore these ideas more in the future, and if Mastodon gets really big, I'd like to explore them more by looking more at Mastodon. This video is kind of a statement of intent, so I can come back and make a sequel sometime in the future, looking back and going over these ideas, maybe in a bit more detail. I'm on Mastodon as Curio. And now, since I never know how to end videos, and I wrote this very quickly, and I like symbolism more than I like oxygen, here's some footage of Pruitt-Igoe being destroyed.